operate in truth, right? Operate in truth. Tell the truth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gator Truth. On this episode, we're going to take a look ahead at the Gators game this Saturday against the Long Island University Sharks. The Long Island University Sharks are really probably the worst team that have come to the Swamp in years and years. Of course, they end up being scheduled after Florida A&M backed out of playing the Gators for the season, leaving us to find a quick replacement. With that said, not a good FCS team. 4-8 last year in one of the lower parts of the FCS, as opposed to the way I put it, it's like picture a 4-8, Sun Belt team, MAC team. That's kind of what we're seeing here. It's not like they're from the SoCon or Southern Conference, which is where a lot of teams that have ended up coming to FBS recently, like App State, like Georgia Southern, things like that, pretty much like the SEC of the NCAA. But with that said, they're coming in. It's going to be a fun night for lots of families. I know I've got my cousin bringing in her son and stepdaughter to come experience the Swamp for the very first time. I'm sure it's going to be a fun night, a good night to do that. And so with this game that I think is probably going to get out of hand, instead of putting keys to victory, it's pretty much things I want to see. Before we get into that, please go and give this video a like. Give us a score prediction in the comment section and also a record prediction if you have not already. And with that said, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. I appreciate any reviews we get, and I even appreciate the banter back and forth with opposing fans as the first video talking about how I believe we should have 4-0 start seemed to have caught some opposing fans off guard. Also, if you have not, we do have our series up with podcasters from our final 8 opponents talking about their teams and how they look for the 2025 football season. So we've got the Longhorns, we've got Zach from the Rebel Walk talking about Ole Miss, my friend Trey from Doghouse Podcast, my friend Landon from My Dogs Are Barking, which is Mississippi State. Also a great long conversation about Tennessee with my friend Skylar, and my friend Jesse from FSU. And I know I'm leaving out A&M and Jay from Kentucky. So I think I've hit everyone. If not, definitely check those out. Leave a like if you do. They help out. They help get more people coming in to check out the podcast. So definitely check this out. Definitely leave a like if you're watching on YouTube. With that said, again, going to be a fun night. Let's go ahead. This will probably be a quicker one. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about the things I want to see from the Gators offense against LIU. The first thing I want to see from the Gators offense is I do want to see 300 passing yards combined between all 2, 3, 4 QBs. We'll see. I believe that we will see at DJ Lagway. Of course, he's been announced as starting, but then will we see both Aiden Warner and Bailey and potentially Tramel Jones? Of course, Tramel Jones can play in 4 games and still not burn his red shirt. So do we maybe not see a Warner or Bailey to get Jones that little bit of experience in the Swamp playing at home? I don't know. The reason I say 300 passing yards is I want to see, with DJ Lagway, I want to see at least 150 yards. I think they could even possibly be bombs. I don't think LIU, almost said LSU. I don't think LIU could stop a go route with an Aiden Mazzell or Dallas Wilson or Trey Wilson if they wanted to. So got to see that. I also want to just see some production in the passing game from the other QBs and the receivers. And I think with how not great this LIU team that is possible. And I also don't want to see any sacks. They're not a great team. This is a time for a good chance for the starting offensive line to really show off, but also for the backups to show, hey, we're ready to step up and step in if something were to happen to a starter, and getting that experience in the passing department would be big, even against an opponent like this. Just have live reps against someone that's not your team. Also on offense, I want to see 250 rushing yards. And by that, I think we're going to run the ball a lot. I think I would rather see us pass a lot early, run the ball later. But with that said, I could see us mixturing both. I can see multiple long touchdown runs. Maybe they happen, maybe they don't. With that said, I do want to see Baugh and Jackson, our top two running backs. I want to see them 5+ yards per carry. I think that's possible, A, because these are both big guys who were close to that, if not above that last year overall. But also, again, it shows our offensive line getting the push they need and these guys running through contact. I think it's more than possible, but I do think I actually think it's a lower bar for this game, but I do want to see that. I do want to also see an intermediate passing game. Last year, that was kind of a weak spot for DJ Lagway, and it's been a weak spot for this offense overall in Billy Napier's first 3 years. We saw with Graham Mertz a lot of things that were 9 yards or less. I think it was like 80% of his completions in 2023 were 9 yards or less, with 30 to 50% of those coming at the line of scrimmage or behind. Last year, DJ Lagway really did well. Was one of the best deep ball passers in the nation when he, started and threw the ball. What's missing between those two extremes is the intermediate passing game. And that's something you'll need. So if the safeties start going deep, go further back, trying to take away the deep ball, you've got to be able to take advantage, throw it underneath where the safeties are, but behind the linebackers. Hopefully we see that, because if we see more of that intermediate passing game, then that's going to do a lot for this offense. And part of it is now opposing defenses have more they've got to think about to stop. Also, it opens up room for the running backs, because now it's not just, we can shut down the deep ball by dropping safeties deep to help out and leave our linebackers up for the run. It also means that, we can't just predict when the Gators are going to go behind the line of scrimmage. So we've got to kind of play that, and maybe that'll help bring up, if we see some of those orbit motions or those pop passes, maybe it opens those up as well. And then part of that intermediate passing game is I want to see the playmakers get the ball in space and land them work. And what I mean by that, I don't mean just the all hitches we see. I want to see like mesh routes. I want to see, not just a flood route, which we see a lot of. And that's when everyone just runs like it across the field towards one side. Generally, we roll out, usually ran to the right or whatever the dominant hand of the players. But see things like mesh route where receivers cross, running slants on things other than third or fourth down where it's not typical, and all sorts of things that get the playmakers in space and let them run. I talked about a little with Aiden Mizell when I talked about him on another episode, where when he gets the ball, he looks like magic. And we only saw a few times last year, and one of his biggest highlights was a play that was called back. And that was on a hitch route where his momentum was stopped, and then he had to pick it up, and he made this great play. You get him the ball in space where he's running, he's probably one of the fastest guys on any team in the NCAA. You get him that ball in space, he's going to run for a while. Plus guys like Trey Wilson, who's shown to make magic with the ball, not last year when he was injured. Granted, he did have an 85-yard touchdown catch against Samford that he caught in the backfield. And then you have guys like Dallas Wilson, who's a size, speed extraordinaire, getting him the ball in space, Sturdivant the ball in space, and letting them run, make a play, make the defense make a mistake. And that's just something I think would be good to see, in general for both the starters and backup receivers, just showing one more thing that defenses have to prepare for when they play the Gators. And I know you don't want to show your full hand, but this is something I think would be good to put into practice or put on tape, but also to help just get used to doing it in a game. That way, when you go and play at an LSU, you go and play at Miami, you've already done it in a game, so you know the feel of the game, you know what you're going to do. So those are the three things I want on offense. I know asking for 300, 600 yards usually is insane, but in a cupcake game like this, it's more than possible. With that said, let's talk about the defense. On defense, first thing I'd like to see is this defensive line, much hyped, especially from the end positions. I want to see 4+ sacks. This is, again, an overmatched team. Get in there. I want to see Sapp, Gums, Cam James. Want to see Woods, who's been hyped up. Want to see all these guys come in, cause havoc in that backfield, and get those sacks, especially when get a sack or two when we see the young guys come in, get that experience. Guys that may be redshirting, but get 4 games before they burn that red shirt. So use them in this. Get them some live action. But with that said, as part of that live action, get a sack. And really all I'm asking is an average of 1 per quarter or more. The defense last year had 7 sacks against LSU. I don't see why this defense possibly can't get this against LIU this year. And then another thing I want to see from the defense is hold our opponents, hold LIU to 200 yards or less than 100 yards with the starters out there. I know I keep saying it, but not a good team. And if you're not a good team, then I expect our production to get up. Let's go ahead and use this as a stat padding game, always helps. But if you're getting those sacks, that'll help. If you're, covering receivers well, that'll help. And you don't need to show any fancy blitzes. And I don't think you need that in this game, to get the sacks. And you don't need to show fancy coverages. I think plenty of zone or man against this team should be fine. And starters, I say under 100 because I think starters are only going to play maybe a half. They could play more, but I assume we only see the half because we're going to be up by so much. Who knows? Maybe we see a defensive touchdown and really help that out. But I don't think that in the 5-6 drives, maybe that LIU gets, they should be averaging, a first down a drive or more. And so, again, with that said, and of course, sack yards, planning that starters, keep them under 100. And then when your backups come in, you allow for, some change, but definitely not like a ton of yards. And then the last thing I want to see from the defense is a defensive shutout. And really, I say that for at least 3 quarters. I'd rather see a full shutout, but here's the thing with a bad team like this, it's also an opportunity to get walk-ons in the game that you're not even going to be able to play when it comes SEC season because of certain roster limits that the SEC has for SEC games. So this is a chance if they're going to play against a team, playing a game in the swamp. This may be their only opportunity. There's definitely an opportunity against an opponent like this. But with bringing some walk-ons, there's always the opportunity that the other team does increase their yards, maybe gets a big play, gets a field goal, or goes and scores 1 touchdown. And so it happens. And so I'm not going to say, hey, it's a failure if we don't shut them out. But I do think if our starting defense cannot shut this team out, we do have a problem. And I think if our second string can't shut them out, it may be questionable. Of course, we'll have to see how it is. Obviously, if it's wet, rainy, and somehow a ball slips out of one of our running back's arms, and now they've got a short field inside the 20, and then they kick a field goal, that obviously that's a lot different. But in general, this should be a team that the Gator defense should shut out. And again, talking about stat padding, pad those points per game stats with a game like this for sure. And then for the team, things I want to see, number one is no major injuries. We've had some guys in walking boots in the last month. We've had, DJ Lagway has had a few knocks over the last few months. Let's get out of here. No major injuries and protect those who are recovering. Like, for example, I don't want to see DJ Lagway really used in the run game at all this game. Obviously, if we start against Miami or Utah like we've done the past 3 years, my feelings are different. But against this team, there's no reason to take the risk. Hand the ball off, get the ball out, protect your guys. Caleb Banks, another guy with a injury that should be pretty good. With that said, maybe get him a few series, but no reason to play him too much and possibly aggravate, because starting next week, the competition wraps up. USF is much better than LIU. Now, I don't think they're LSU coming up in 2 weeks, but don't do anything that could potentially hurt that availability in this game because you did a little too much in a game you really didn't need someone. And that goes for anyone else, Dallas Wilson or whatnot. Yes, I want to see him do well. But with that said, I'd be fine if I didn't see him play, if it was a matter of, okay, he could aggravate something or he could have one more week of rest and really be 100% for USF. Now, if he's at 100%, let him go for sure. And that goes for everyone. The second thing I want to see from this team is solid, good play from the backups. They're going to get good experience, and part of that good experience is taking the game seriously. Yes, it's an overmatched opponent, but if you're following your assignments, if you're tackling solidly on defense, if you're making catches, running great routes, all the different things, if you're an offensive lineman and you're solidly blocking, dominating your opponent, lots of things, take it seriously as a chance to get the experience and get better. As I said earlier, as guys can show, hey, I am ready. And this goes for offense, defense, whoever can show I'm ready if something happens to step up and at least be solid in the position if I'm not as good as a starter. And part of that is even with an overmatched opponent continuing to just, be about business in this game. And so I want to see that good and solid play. If we see guys like Vernell Brown the third come in, or if we see Ben Hanks Jr. come in, true freshman that may play a lot, may play a little. I'm very curious to see how that is. I want to see them show up, show out. And of course, did I name 2 legacies? Yeah, I did. But I want them to play well, not just because I want to see them play, but they're 2 players that have the potential to contribute significantly when it comes time for the big games in the season. So coming in, being serious about this and showing that we're ready would be great to see. And then the last thing I want to see from this team as a team, very few penalties. I don't want to see any stupid celebration penalties. I don't want to see, this is not a team you need to hold. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. But for sure, we don't need something like that. We don't need to see false starts from the starters, hopefully from no one. But if it's the starters, let's see that discipline. Let's not see, any stupid chippy penalties where we went and picked on a team we know is much weaker than talk trash and got a 15. Don't do that in any game. Don't do something that's going to hurt the team. And also, I don't want to see any special teams penalties. Let's have 11 guys out there each and every time and do it correctly. It's, in my opinion, it's cost us games, at least two that I know of, where points that would have made a difference in the game, including a game-winning field goal, were called back because, or impacted because of a penalty. Of course, Arkansas being one of them, back in 2023, where that procedure penalty on special teams moves us back 5 yards and we miss what would be a game-winning field goal. Then Tennessee last year, end of the first half, and of course, game goes into overtime. So any points, Florida may win this, especially if instead of being up 10-0, they're up 13-0. Into that, Florida makes a field goal. Too many men, run off. Points are not on the board, taken off the board, run off, and it's halftime. And so I don't want to see any of that nonsense, especially in a game like this. But even seeing something so inconsequential or something small like this that most people may be like, what's it matter? Seeing that good stuff here, I think shows hope, in theory, should show us good stuff later. So that's what I want to see from the team is, I want to see good offense, good defense. I want this to be just a fun atmosphere for the night. If I had to give a prediction, I'd say, to be safe, 52-7, which I believe is close to that Eastern Washington score. I can look that up real quick. But that was a fun game on a Sunday. And 52-17 was actually that game. Now, Eastern Washington is also a better team in the FCS. Now, they weren't great that year. But my point being, and Eastern Washington scored a field goal early and then 14 points in the final quarter. This team's much worse than that team, in my opinion. And who knows, they could shock me. But I say that I could see this being a 52-7 game, 45-point win. For those of you gambling, the line has hovered around 45.5, 44.5, 46.5. Depending on a few different places I've seen people post it from. But I'm going to go with that 45-point win. The second time Billy Napier gets 50 points for the Gators. And I think this team's capable of scoring a lot more, but I think that we go to the running game at some point and just kill a lot of time. Last year in the bowl game, we saw Rubio get carries. We saw Des Watson get some carries. Obviously Watson's not taking handoffs, but I do think we may see some backups like that coming in and getting opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise. And so again, I keep saying it'll just be a fun night in the swamp. Will I be scoreboard watching to look at other games? Yeah, probably. But also things like Ahmad Black doing two bits will be great to start off the season, and lots of other fun. Can't wait to see everyone at the stadium. If you see me, please say hi. And that goes for any game this year, home, away, whatever. Always love meeting new people. And with that said, everyone, football season's here. Can't wait to see the Gators kick it off, and really can't wait to see what's in store. This will be a fun year. I've called it a make or break year, but either way, it should start off with a bang. And with that said, thank you all for listening. And as always, go Gators.